Recognizing result document Europe in EU NVDA mods. New game result 1 overlay PDFs. 2000 in power. Available here to see a message from our game directors. 2000 log account in auto zombie. Play.
Hello everyone. Hold on. Hello everyone, I'm Zach Klein, and I hope that y'all can hear me. I am going to be today streaming a game called Europa Universalis IV, and basically demonstrating how it is at least somewhat accessible to the blind as it currently stands, and how it could potentially be made more so. EU4, for people who don't know, is basically what's called a grand strategy game, and it basically allows you to take control of a country, excuse me, any country from about 1444 to the 19th century, and basically have charge of all their diplomatic, military, whatever decisions. It's great for fans of alternate history, such as myself, and it presents a metric ton of information in text form, as you'll see. I intend to basically demonstrate starting the game and show how I'm able to play it as a totally blind player using a program called Non-Visual Desktop Access, or NVDA. It's what's called a screen reader, which is basically a kind of program that vocalizes everything that's on a computer screen. EU4 is not compatible with NVDA by default, but with the addition of some add-ons, NVDA has the ability to do what's called OCR of the game screen, and basically it will recognize game text there, and that's very handy for basically determining what's going on, especially in a game like this, which uses lots of text. It also allows me to do things like route the mouse to specific places on the screen and save positions for future reference. I'll demonstrate this as I go along, but for now, I'm going to basically start the game. To do that, I have the game launcher open, and I've used NVDA OCR to scan the screen, since the screen otherwise is inaccessible. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I have a program I have NVDA up, and I forgot to turn down the voice speed. Let me do that real quick.
NVDA menu, preferences, sub-menu, settings, S. NVDA settings, general node B. Speech 213, speech property change. Synthesis plus H. Voice combo box in synthesizer grouping change. Voice combo variant, combo box masculine rate, slider rate, alt plus R. 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 60, 50. Brakes not checked, all pitch, slider 14 flex, volume, slider automatic volume, slider 100 alt plus 90, 80, 70, 50. 670. Automat punctuation / trust. In consortium data, the capital pitch change. Say cap before beep for cap use spell. Okay, cancel Merton. Okay, Merton. Europa Universalis.
Alright, I'm sorry. I hope that that's a little more understandable. Hold on. So, let me double check something. Sorry guys, this is taking... I needed to make sure that OBS was set to record, which I realized I forgot to do. Oh, it's already recording. Never mind.
OK button. Europa Universalis
All right,
blank.
so
Bottom blank.
I'll go ahead and actually get started here. Running OCR with the
Recognizing result document.
on the game screen.
Europe in EUGBL.2 Spain 3R8.
It says it clearly is not perfect at reading information, as you heard. But I'd like to point out that about 90% of the problem, 95% of the problem is that it's literally doing a scanned text recognition. So
DLC. Mods.
I'm using NVDA commands to scroll down the screen.
GD Scenery now. Europe. Golden Sen available now. Build an empire for God. Gold and the trap. The glory. Europa Universal continue.
Okay.
Auto sub to log out play.
I'm going to go to play, route the NVDA mouse cursor to that with a command, and hit the left mouse button,
Left click.
and that should start.
Europa Universalis responding.
If everything behaves just so.
Universalis Roman 4.
I nominally have the music. I thought I had turned down the music earlier in an earlier game, but I guess it's a save. I guess it's save based. So let me go ahead and do that in the settings window. Hold on. One of the downsides is that I'm running this on a cloud gaming PC. Oh, crap. Next time. I have a friend offering to come and help me turn the music off. That would be very helpful for, hold on. I currently had to close my cloud gaming PC, so let me reconnect to that real quick. And then, yes, I would very much appreciate it if you would.
Review to learn more about automatic data collection tools and privacy link button HTTPS. Asset row 1 top Explorer. Clickable more link. Clickable map play button unavailable. Button top. Play button unavailable.
All right.
Asset game window. Landscape. New notification on Parset. Array button number 431. Not selected. Not Parset.
Okay, sorry.
From Parset. Mail channel number 1.
One benefit to Parsec, incidentally, is that you can basically allow other people to connect to the game, and this to connect to the virtual system. This proves very helpful for me in this case, especially because, as you'll see, one of the things I've had to do is basically tell NVDA where a lot of things are on screen based on pixel locations. And that is difficult without sighted help. I am totally blind and have been since birth, so I depend on other people to give me that input. I'm just going to check the OCR screen to see where we are. Single. Okay. Option. Let's do that. Options. I'm gonna trust my friend will be able to help me turn the music down here. Or turn it off.
Desktop.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Phew. That will hopefully make things easier to understand. Okay.
Options. Single player. Europa.
All right, now we're back on the main menu screen. And I can use OCR and it'll read me pretty much reasonably well what's on this. Credits, options, multiplayer, content. Oh, there's the disconnect. There's that disconnect notification, which will hopefully go away, or maybe already has. Because one of the downsides to using OCR is that it doesn't automatically update itself, so I have to keep scanning the screen, which takes only a couple keystrokes. It's not a huge loss, but it does mean that my rhythm of playing the game is a little different from the norm, I would imagine. So let's start a single-player game, and then I'm going to walk you through how I do that. First off, I just find single player and then route the mouse to it and click. There we go.
Europa
do another
Universalis
scan.
Historical Shrine of the Ottoman. Roman 2 November 1440.
And now what we have here, we have a bunch of bookmarks down the left side of the screen. And these include the first one, Rise of the Ottomans, although NVDA OCR didn't quite catch that, as you heard. But I'm going to root the mouse to that and click. This basically picks the grand campaign. And now, this is the thing. Visually, there's a giant game map here. I, as a blind person, cannot scroll that or cannot usually interact with it at the moment because it's all graphical and OCR doesn't pick up on that. Fortunately, what I've done is, with sighted help, I've asked and gotten a screen reader. Basically, there's an add-on called Golden Cursor for NVDA, and basically all it does is let you use your mouse and route it to specific pixel coordinates, like points on the screen, basically arbitrarily. And these include things like the center of the map, which I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to pick a country that I've picked before and just show how this operates. So hit F, which pulls up the game's Find Province interface. Then I'm going to search for Castile, C-A-S-T-I-L-E.
C-A-S-T-I-L-E.
All right, hit Enter. That should have scrolled the map to the center of the, or scrolled Castile to the center of the map. And then hit a command in NVDA's Golden Cursor, which pulls up a list of saved mouse positions. Conveniently enough, I have a position here called Center of Map. Enter. And it may or may not look like it visually, but if I hit the left mouse button, and then do an OCR scan, okay, I am Juan II de Trastamara is now selected. Now, Juan II of Castile, basically. Now, for practical purposes, there are some iconic things here that I can't read very well yet. But with some help, these should be doable, I think. Because a lot of the times what this game does is it presents information as a little visual icon to save space and to be a little more visually entertaining. And that's fine, except NVDA OCR doesn't know how to understand it. So, workarounds. The game presents all sorts of information in what are basically tooltips. And normally, if you have a tooltip in an app, it doesn't stay around, as far as I know. But EU4, and presumably other Paradox games as well, changes that and basically has the tooltip automatically stick around, which is very helpful indeed. So I'm going to, for the time being, start the new game, and then I'll show you what I mean by this. Okay, there's no... Okay, play. There we go. And I know for a fact that if I hit enter on this screen here, Castile will... Oh, wait. That's not what I wanted. Apparently I was too close to the start menu.
Europa Universalis IV window. System menu bar contains Europa no next. Search window. Object review blank. No next.
Damn. Cloud machines being...
no next.
Ah, there we go. This is... Okay, I'm going to hit enter on the screen again and try that.
No preview mode. Europa Universalis.
The biggest problem is that
Europa Universalis IV not responding.
Occasionally the cloud machine does random shit like this, and or the laptop that I'm actually playing on intercepts the keystroke and I get confused. But we're all good. It's all good. Normally I play on my Mac, and that doesn't have this problem. Now, the lovely noise you hear is the game's ambient I guess, audio. So, I happen to know that you start out the game paused. So, you start out the game paused, and there's one, I think, I'm going to scan the screen here.
Content is not visible.
Oh, or I would.
No previous review. Desktop window.
No, then.
Start button. Search window. Search win. Task. Running applet notifications. User remote system clock. Show desktop. Europa set window. Europa. Star contains commands to minim close. Europa Universalis. Left click.
Whoops. I think I accidentally pulled up an
Blank. Bottom blank.
unit.
Recognizing result 56 cast. And only a
Okay.
Content is not with blank. Content is not. No previous review mode. No objects inside. Content is not visible.
NVDA is giving me unusual trouble here.
Blank. Top.
Of course.
Desktop.
But
no objects inside. Content is not visible. Content desktop unknown.
I don't know
desktop,
why.
No next.
It seems to think that for some reason that I'm on the desktop, which was not intentional.
Set window. Set with Europa Universe. Left click. Blank. Button. Recognizing results. Europa Ucast. Search Roman.
Okay, so the main menu is up,
Blank.
which isn't what I wanted, but I'm going to hit escape and hopefully close that. Basically, what we have visually here is a very cluttered interface, but fortunately, a lot of times, the game keeps things in the same positions. So, for instance, NVDA can... There's an indicator on the screen. I'm not entirely sure where it is. I think it's near the top that shows your manpower, for instance, and your gold and other things. And I'm going to have NVDA go to that indicator. Let's.
No mouse position for DWM.
Oh,
Blank.
because it still thinks that.
No mouse position for DWM.
It still thinks that I'm in
no new mode.
The desktop for reasons that escape me.
DWM. Blank.
I'm not.
No mouse position for DWM. Blank.
God damn it, NVDA.
It is visible. Desktop list. Europa Universe start button.
I'm going to try something here
Unknown.
and
search task.
see if I can overcome this.
Show system clock. User remote system clock. 10:18 a.m. Show Europa set window. Your system menu bar contains command. Left universe.
All right.
Blank. Bottom blank. Recognizing cast style. 50 1000 bottom 1 Europa.
Okay, that's more like it. Now, let's hope it doesn't keep doing this. I'm going to route the cursor to the
mouse positions for EU4 dialog.
gold.
G.
Or
Administrator D. Declare war. D. Diplomatic and D. Diplomatic tech D. Diplomatic D. Declare war. D. Diplomatic.
Oh, I called it treasury.
Treasury position. Europa Universe.
Let me just run
recognizing
OCR.
56 you have 200. This is the amount of mobile you have 241.99 and the previous monthly balance was. This is the amount of mobile it was available. Armies, advisors and new build 1W. Last month's result was the plus 9.25 PM.TON plus 3.146 plus 8.32 gold plus 2 state maintenance. Army maintenance. Fleet maintenance. Minus 1.7.
I want to point out that this tooltip is incredibly verbose and basically explains everything about where my money came from and where it's going, or quite a bit of it anyway. And the nice thing about NVDA and the game is that the OCR sucks sometimes, but is that the information is always in the same place, and I can always find it. My ultimate goal would be to basically have the game automatically read a lot of this information out, which I'm told should not be very difficult. So I'm going to find manpower real quick just to demonstrate that this still works.
Recognizing results not bullet to cast 7 MVR maximum current to gain 270 maximum is 30,586 MVR max current to fill your army's you need men and no will reach the armies this month to fill currently you gain 278 each to fill reach the armies this month a maximum of 30,586 depends on base value plus 10,000 from provinces plus 7 100 feudal monarchy not the speed back which recovers is modified by nobility plus 20.0%.
Etc. 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 The reason the tooltip sometimes OCR does weird things like obviously mistaking a 0 for an O, but I want to point out that this is just the OCR problem, and the actual tooltip is fine and is obviously available in the game and can be sent to the screen reader via a more direct means. Now, Castile is a country, or is a kingdom in what will become Spain, and to demonstrate basically what I'm able to do with these hotspots, I am going to take a good opening move in the new game, in any new EU4 game, and hire advisors. To do that, I hit F1, which is the game's shortcut for pretty much everything that you want to do related to your country. And observe, there's a nice sound cue to let me know I am on the court screen. For the benefit of blind players, the sound cues are, I don't think that they're quite unique in the sense that there are sometimes cues that are reused for some screens, but it's very possible to tell, say, oh, this is the court interface versus this, which is the economy interface, or the government interface, or this, which is the diplomacy interface. I'm using 1, 2, 3, which are default game shortcuts for moving among them. So I'm going to go back to court, and then hit scan again. 1 the second, Trastamara is our current ruler, and our heir is Enrique de Trastamara. Now, one thing, again, that we'll need to eventually get fixed is that a lot of these characters have ratings displayed in the form of little pips. Graphically, they kind of make it a little nicer looking than having numbers, I think. But the downside is that at the moment I can't tell how the characters are. Fortunately, I know Castile starts out with a kind of so-so ruler in Juan II, but his heir, Enrique, who will assume the throne when Juan II dies, is uniformly terrible. Basically, the way that it works is that your monarch generates points that you use for various things, and he generates none whatsoever, as far as I understand it. Enrique, that is. So I cannot tell that at the moment, but again, with some judicious, hopefully, help from Paradox, this ought to be relatively easy to fix. For the time being, though, I'm going to do what I said I was going to, and hire some advisors. Advisors basically, not only do they add points generation every month, but they add bonuses to your provinces and things like your maintenance and your morale and all the statistics that make the empire run. So let's do
positions. Advisor 1, position administrative advisor.
For those who wonder why I had to use a shortcut for this, basically each advisor is given a portrait, and the way you do this visually is you click on the empty portrait slot, and then you hire an advisor that way. And you basically you click on the portrait, and then you get a list of advisors, as I'm going to demonstrate. The problem, obviously, is that OCR doesn't understand what a portrait is, so I had to improvise. This takes time, mostly just because we have to pull up the screen, we have to put the mouse over there, and I have to have a sighted person who's like, hey, okay, this is where your mouse is now. And then I have to come up with a reasonable label for it. Once again, when the game is able to read a lot of this stuff out, this will be less than necessary. But for the time being, let's click, and then
ELP plus 1.00 ELF4 ELP plus 1.0 56 age of price 61.6 age 33
no
Diego Pienzen
Diego
00 month born in C6 Cordoba.
Cordoba is obviously
national tax
what they meant.
Plus 10.0 per price 60 age 30 the C6 Cordoba.
The Cordova
theologian. National unrest minus 2 4.0 born in Madrid. A highly study on religious topics.
There are 3 advisors here. I'm not entirely sure where the third. I believe there are 3 advisors. I'm not entirely sure where some end and others begin, but let's go ahead and hire this first one. I think his name is. Well. Oh, I'm gonna basically root the mouse to each of these guys and then use OCR to see if I can read their tooltip information.
Age 30, born in Lama 1000 and autumn, 1 autumn, 1 born in A, I'm a Brahman Nashas, DA, born in 4.0,
so Diego is not the theologian, that is,
Age, price, PU, 56 A plus 1.0, yearly peace time,
something, which NVDA is refusing to read comprehensively because it's a Spanish name, obviously. Lo Porlano, or something.
Plus 10 point price, age 4 points born in the CC national U minus 2 point price, I monthly age, born in Lama 1000 autumn, 1 autumn, born A, I monthly price, 16 minus 2.0, national U Vincent, the C6 October, DE, national U minus price, 16.
I'm gonna check the third one.
I monthly age, born in Lama 1000, born in Lama Europa recommend result cast out 50 select LF yearly plus what price age the EU4 national plus set price age 34.0 born in Madrid the C6 October national UN minus 2 point price monthly age born in Lamawa theologian national unrest minus 2 ADKM study on religious topics ADKMW legible in spiritual matters and study 1 autumn 1000 Europa Universalis.
Let's try the third advisor. I believe it's the third advisor who's a theologian. Not 100% sure because of the OCR, but basically, advisors are of different types, and they can be. They are of different types, and different types give you different bonuses. This is covered at length on wikis and other places. So click on the third one, and then scan again just to confirm that I'm hiring who I think I am. Decard. 16 ducats, or gold. 16 gold, and then an additional 1 gold per month. Okay. C is confirm. There we go. He's recruited. Now, I'm going to demonstrate. Let's see. I think I've sufficiently demonstrated that OCR is the primary reason that this is difficult, because it doesn't always read. It doesn't always read, obviously, everything that's there, or stuff that's represented by graphics. But it does read enough to make it possible to play this game. If I were actually trying to play this game for real, I would recruit 2 more advisors using a very similar process to the one I've just done. But I am not. I'm just demonstrating it. So I'm going to now unpause the game and let it run, because I should have said earlier that this game is real-time, not turn-based. But fortunately for blind people, it can be paused and unpaused, and basically supports pausing at any time, and nothing happens, obviously, while it's paused, so you can make decisions and such about what you want to do. So to pause and unpause, it's space. Now, one other suggestion I want to... Oh, let's see what I got here. All right. Let me some of Okay. Austria entered a military alliance with somebody, but I can't tell whom. Fortunately, that came with a sound cue. Now, one thing that does not currently come with a sound cue are these things called alerts at the bottom, or at the, I think, right-ish of the screen. They're visually, they're little red flags, which is fine, except, obviously, I can't interact with them. And I think it's also a little difficult to tell when they're there or not, because I kind of just have to presume, because none of them, as far as I know, they don't make noise, but I would... Anyway, alerts basically do things, show you things like, these are things you can do, this is a time you can add new technology, or a time you can potentially lose control of the country, or you're about to go bankrupt, or so on and so forth. One of the alerts that came up, or is probably presumably up, is the need to add a rival, or 3. Rivals are basically countries in the game that you're committed to having a long-standing, well, rivalry with. For the sake of demonstration, I'm going to really quickly do that, although the process is fairly similar to what we did with advisors. So hit F1, 3 for diplomacy.
3.
And then, basically, the way that the rivals interface works is that there are 3, I believe, little shield icons, and if you click on them, you can add your first, second, and third rival. I'm going to add my first rival for the purposes of demonstration.
Mouse position F. First rival position Europa Universalis.
Okay.
Left click.
Click.
Recognizing recast outlet CO name -38% EU under MCCO. 56
Oh.
MCM.
Let's add it. It's Morocco. It's not Monaco, which I had first assumed, but it's Morocco. These.
EU on -38% Navy.
Let's.
EU under
Oh,
MCCO.
there's Monaco, Morocco, Burgundy, or there's Morocco. Excuse me, Morocco, Burgundy.
Makil Herald from Makil entered with error 50 -30 -50 1000 bottom.
Okay. Let's.
Recognizing cast little CO -EU on Morocco. To rival. Click to right Navy. -38%. 56 of used. If minor Navy. N.
These basically give information.
Navy. -% EU on gun. MOMC 56 used. Herald from Makil enter them with error 50 -1000 bottom 1000.
Some of these, the problem with OCR is that sometimes a lot of these numbers are being read, either are being read without context, and so sometimes I have to root the mouse to figure out what the hell actually is being talked about. So let's go to Morocco and click on it, just for demonstration.
Left click.
And then hit C to confirm.
C.
They are my first rival. So that's done.
Blank, bottom, top, blank.
The diplomacy interface is one that is a little annoying because sometimes it's hard to tell what actions I'm able to do on a country because sometimes they're indicated by color. But with judicious speech, I think it should be possible to make it a little more pleasant. So let me hit space. Or actually, no, let me hit enter first and see if I can dismiss the pop-up about Austria's alliance. Now, you might have heard it say Icelandic Sea. The reason it does that is because sometimes, basically, there's tooltips that happen when you hover over places on the map as well. And these are readable and contain all sorts of information about terrain types and fortifications and things of that nature. Now, admittedly, the map is one of those areas of the game that I'm still a little confused about how to make it totally accessible, but I'm sure that with some brainstorming and work on that, we can figure out a solution. Basically, the map, for all purposes, is divided into provinces. Provinces are basically like cities and cities and what we would consider, I guess, the countryside and metropolitan areas around them. And each province has connections to other provinces, and there are something like 1,400 of these in total. I forget what the balance of sea to land provinces is, but basically, you have provinces, you have armies and fleets which can move through them and onto them, and tooltips which explain all sorts of information about each one of them. And there's a little interface which you can use to basically find any particular province at all and center the map on it, which I did earlier when I was trying to pick the country of Castile to play with. So this is a bit of a tangent, but might be helpful for blind people who otherwise are not able to understand what I'm experiencing.
Cast style.
Uh,
Europa recognize cast 5 part enter with error ally. Europa Universalis. Recognizing recast 5 part my kill percent of track. Left click. Recognizing cast 5 part my kill enter them with arrows 1 bottom 1 bottom 1 trier. AU. Left click. Europa recognizing recast 5 part assessor.
Oh, okay. I think I finally managed to dismiss that pop-up. In my ideal world, it would be read aloud automatically, but I'm going to unpause the game for just a brief span of time to see if anything comes up.
Recognizing recast 50 as answer no fleet 1 bottom 1 no fleet /33/150 no fleets have patrolled here recently.
I should point out that there is a giant. Oh, what do we got? Let's.
Record 200 cast is 802 212 to December 115 75 used. A on disk. Kill percent Austria. Enter the military ally with error without. The Pia Latin. The Pia Latin. 1037.
Okay, the Palatinate is a country in Germany. It looks like. I believe. Oh. Okay, this is another pop-up. Basically, what this means is that for since we declared a rival, we have gained the ability to declare war on them for no other reason than that we want to humiliate them. The phrase casus belli, or casus belli, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it, is Latin for basically cause for war. And that little notification was saying that we have a new reason to declare war on Morocco, because we want to humiliate them. So I might or might not do that at some point. Probably not in the demonstration, though, just because warfare is one of those things that A, takes a lot of preparation, and B, I don't know how to do it well yet. So let's hit enter again.
Recognizing results to the cast is
all right, that's that. I mean, honestly, a lot of what I would else be doing is very similar in flow. Do an OCR scan, or pull up the right screen, then do a scan, read the information if I can, and if I can't, then basically use NVDA to figure out as much as I possibly can about what's going on, and then route the mouse to a specific spot on the screen and click. It's brute force, but it works. You're able to have fun with this game if you poke at it, and honestly, 98% of the problems we're having is because of the OCR, and that will be changed if the game is able to speak to the screen reader directly. So I think I'm going to start wrapping this up, and I'll just put in some suggestions here. The first suggestion I would say is, please, if we can come up with a way to avoid using OCR, if at all possible, that would be helpful, because obviously you've seen how it sometimes gets confused and does random shit that doesn't make sense unless you know what print letters look like, which I sort of do, but that's another story. More audible feedback for things like pause state. That would be great. Even something as simple as a little tone that it plays when the game is paused or unpaused, or some sort of like da-dun for unpaused, da-dun for paused, or anything like that audibly would be nice. Because at the moment, obviously, I kind of have to use OCR to tell when it's paused or not. Fortunately, that is at least almost universally readable. So, the other thing I'd like to maybe suggest is console commands to speak province information, so I don't have to move my mouse over everything or use things of that nature. The console is basically a giant text interface that the game engine uses for some internal stuff, and that gets pulled up with, I believe, the Grav accent key. But I'm not going to demonstrate that here because it's not super useful for me at the moment. So, final thought, or not quite final thought, but close to it. Some kind of unit movement log at the moment would be nice, because the way that units work, armies and fleets are separate types of units, and you can basically order them to move to any province at any time. The downside is that sometimes it's hard to tell where they are unless they start attacking your province. Hold on. Random Skype notification came in. Oh. Damn it. Am I getting Skype? Oh, questions. Keyboard shortcuts, ideally, would be good. Guys, sorry. I'm basically having someone relay Twitch chat messages to me. Keyboard shortcuts would be good because the problem with the mouse is that unless NVDA is using OCR, I don't have a lot of ways to... Now, I mean, I guess the problem is that unless NVDA is using OCR, the ability to move the mouse is kind of dependent on, maybe not chance, but yeah, something like that. In general, keyboard shortcuts are preferable for accessibility, if possible, because everybody can use them. I'm an accessibility, I should say I'm an accessibility tester and web accessibility person by trade, so keyboard shortcuts are kind of ingrained in my blood. That being said, I do like this game because it basically allows you to mod the hell out of anything, including keyboard shortcuts, so that in itself should not be difficult. Oh, as far as tuning pop-ups, yeah. My friend Danielle, who is relaying the messages to me, was kind enough to do that already. We went through and... yeah. Basically, yeah, we went through a couple nights ago and basically tuned as many messages as we could to pause the game and pop up as opposed to appearing on the map or being hidden or whatever. The downside is that obviously until I get some kind of audible pause notification, I won't know if that necessarily has happened without checking for it. But fortunately, I'm patient. So okay. Oh, yeah, I did actually use F already. I should have explained that in more depth. I was using F to find the province, or to find Castile to play, basically. I don't know how zoom level interacts with the screen reader. I know that there is a way to zoom the map visually, and that will theoretically like shrink the bounds of what's visible, but I don't see, so it's hard to tell what's... Presumably, that will make it easier to focus on specific areas of the world, I would guess. But I haven't experimented with that. Mostly because we didn't add mouse hotspots for zoom yet, although that's easy to do. But yeah, the F command is very useful. Basically, all that does is, as you said, pop up an interface that lets you type province names, or country names, I think, as well. And I have a bookmark set for the center of the map, and that's all I did to pick a specific country. Before I did that, the way I used to start a game was to click Random Nation, and then immediately open up the console and switch nations that way. So, yeah, that's how I did that. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer them or do anything. Let's see. That's a question. I don't know how exactly. I think it might be like, does the spatial direction really matter as much as province connections though? I'm just kind of wondering about this because, to be honest with you, I made the stupid mistake in another test game, of declaring war before I was really ready for it and getting trounced. But I think that was mostly because I made the mistake of picking on a country that had far too many allies. But I don't honestly know a lot about how we can be totally useful as far as map readouts go. I think this is pretty much a case of we have to experiment a bit and see what works. I am not the be-all and end-all of blind accessibility, gaming accessibility stuff, but I did have one thought, which was maybe like some kind of province cursor setup that basically says, okay, you can scroll around the map province by province and move from one spot to another. And as you reach connection, as you pass over a province, it'll tell you, okay, this is where you are, and if the fog of war is not interfering, you'll see what's there or whatever. Yeah, adjacency. That sounds good. I know there's already a command to cycle through your armies. I think we were doing that with the unit interface when I declared that war. I was trying to figure out how to assign a general, and it was a little confusing, but that was OCR's fault. Also, I should point out that a lot of times, honestly, from my perspective, Wikipedia and Google will be helpful in figuring out what the hell is where. And I need to get myself a Braille atlas. I used to have one, but it got misplaced or lost in a move or something. But yeah, some kind of provincial cursor that could give an indication of direction would be nice, because I know for a fact that provinces are given coordinates and so forth. So it should be fairly, I'd hope, easy to come up with directions if you wanted to do that. The other thing I was wondering about, obviously, would be the ledger interface, which basically is a giant spreadsheet. And I think that could be very useful for me in terms of, like, figuring out what's... Okay. Oh, yeah, the ledger. Unfortunately, OCR kind of chokes a bit on tabular data. I can show you real quick if you'd like. Let's do that. L.
Recognizing result document. You're not in a party. Create a party.
Oh, come on, parsec.
Europa Universalis Roman. Europa U blank. Bottom blank.
Anyway.
Left click. L. Recognizing result not. You're not in a create a party. Europa Universalis.
Sorry.
Blank.
Give me a moment.
No. Europa Universalis system menu marked. Europa. You can left click. Blank. Recognizing Europa Unit. Your party. Not in a party. Europa. Blank. Recognizing result. You create a party. Balance in number.
Okay. Just a moment. Parsec is interfering in a big way.
Context parsec document. Clickable link lead on the parsec.
Okay.
Europa Universalis Roman recognizing result 200 cast is 58.
All right. Minimize the hell out of parsec theoretically.
Context menu. Europa Universalis Roman.
Or wait, I can just close it. Next time I should have done that. Anyway, ledger.
Recognizing 200 C800 212 V61 2 December 115th. Page X75. Ledger index. Untry. Right. Parsec window. Link clickable.
Come on. Okay.
Parsec. Context menu. Parsec window. Parsec. Context close C. Malleable parsec document. Link clickable button join. Context Europa Universalis.
I don't know why it keeps doing this. I think it might have something to do with the mouse or whatever. But anyway, the ledger's up. The problem is that The problem is that
Clickable buttons or
I can only read.
context menu. Close C. Parsec document. Click a link. Clickable press. Context. Close C. Parsec window.
The problem
Parsec.
is that obviously I can only read
Parsec.
what OCR shows me, and it doesn't understand. It only
Document link.
grabs text in kind of a, I guess, linear order. There's no real way to customize that. I think that the OCR is built into Windows 10, so some kind of way of passing ledger information to the screen reader would probably be better than depending on it. But yeah, I think your idea is sound about country information. It's going to be very useful in the long term. Yeah. Trying to think of other stuff. Like I was saying earlier, just some kind of movement way of doing a movement log, preferably limited to the fog of war, so I'm not hearing about armies in Bohemia or wherever. Would be useful. But yeah, I mean, if there's anything else I can answer, please feel free to ask away. I'm here. And about all I can say is that screen readers have an API that it should be fairly easy to talk to. There are libraries, multiple libraries that you can use to do that. So from a development perspective, that's not... I'm not personally responsible for any of them, so... But I know that they exist. Yeah, thank you all for coming, and I'm happy to be here. And you can ping me on Reddit at blindguynw if you want, or my email address is z as in Zulu, Klein, Kline, at speedpost.net, SPEED. Oh, hold on. Okay, Skype, I know. Actually, I think the ledger does have hotkeys for each section, doesn't it? I think you can do F1 through F5 or something, or 6. I forget how many sections there are. I incidentally made the mistake of editing an interface file the other day and basically trying to to add a hotkey for like rivals or something, I think, and inadvertently got rid of one of the default ledger hotkeys. But yeah, it does have, I think, hotkeys for that. So thanks y'all. Anyway, I was giving my email address. It's Z as in Zulu, Klein, Kline, at speedpost, SPEEDPOST.net, or blindguynw on Reddit, or whatever you'd prefer, Z_Klein, Kline, on Skype. Or if anyone wants to pop in and join me on Parsec yourselves, I promise you that normally it's not this finicky. You're more than welcome. So thank you all. I think the macro builder does. I've never messed with it, but it does at least allow you to move from section to section. That's something I should look into. I was a little confused by that because it said people were talking about having to pay for the macro builder, and I'm like, wait, is that? Yeah. Any clarification on that would be nice, because I know that you can pull it up with B, but that's about all I know. It strikes me that, as far as hotkeys for myself are concerned, all the map modes are probably not super necessary since I'm not going to be looking at them. So I might be able to redefine those and use QWER for something else, but I don't know. But yeah, I'm at the moment I'm just sitting on the base game. I didn't buy any DLC because I figured it would be difficult enough learning the mechanics without, adding extra complexity.
Clickable new Super Mario Bros. Wii clickable North
Okay,
America clickable link.
come on, NVDA. Hey, no criticism intended. I have no problem with paying for things if they're good quality. It was mostly just curiosity. So yeah, Art of War is definitely on my list of what I'd like to get. So yeah, yeah. I am, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from. I am the kind of person who has been known to buy random games off Steam just in the hope of making them potentially accessible, and it, for the most part, I mean, 99 times out of 10 you don't get anywhere, but there's always the 10th. So yeah. Oh, getting a question from another blind player who's interested. When will I start streaming? I've already been streaming, but I will be recording this, and it is available. I will tell him so. Oh, okay. That's helpful to know. Yeah. Because the production interface was the thing that was a little bit confusing too, because I think I got to the point where I could add provincial improvements, and I was like, well, am I going to have to click on each individual plot of land to do that? Not that I mind, but yeah. Honestly, a big part of the problem here is that neither me nor the friend who's been helping me out principally with all this are very familiar with the way the interface looks, or so yeah, it's a little confusing. That's part of what I've been thinking. Maybe I ought to try and find an experienced player who would be able to guide me through some of the complexities. Yeah, so thanks all. I'm happy to. I guess this is a good length. Once again, feel free to reach out. I'll be around, and I'm planning to still keep poking at the OCRing thing, and I wish I could customize it, but I can't. As it is, yeah, most of the screens are at least partially legible, which is more than I can say for 95% of other games. So I'll be around y'all. Thanks so much. Let's do this. NVDA, come on.
Loading NVDA, please wait. RSEC. RSEC game window. 64, 23.2. Mixer window.
Thank you all.
Teams window. Source. Volumes under property. New volumes under property. Sources checkbox check. Control settings. Studio mode. Top streaming checkbox check. Not checked. Top in stream. Top streaming. Top recording checkbox check. Studio top recording checkbox check.